Luke, please do a 30 seconds countdown.
Possible. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar to discuss how we can beat plastic pollution in Nigeria. My name is Luke Alade, and I can see most of our participants joining in already. I would allow for a few more people to be on the call so we can begin this conversation. I'd like to say thank you for taking our time this morning to join this session. It means a lot that we are all enthusiastic about finding viable methods and ways in which we can beat plastic pollution. I think that's fantastic. And I can assure you that we would not waste so much of our time. We would drive this as fast as possible and drive home the points we need to get from this. I would like to say welcome again and good morning as we're about to start the webinar in a few minutes, in some minutes. Thank you. Again, good morning. I can see most of the participants joining the call. It's 2 minutes past 11 and we'll start off in a really short while. I will just allow for more people to join the call. We have a good number to start already. However, I'll just allow for a few more persons to join the call so they can benefit from this very important conversation that we have here today. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking our time to join the webinar to discuss how we can, drive and do better things for the environment as we commemorate the World Environment Day today. Thank you. My name is Luke Alade, and I'm your moderator for today. I'm a senior analyst in Sudani Group. We have 3 good panelists. We've curated 3, or we've invited 3 panelists to discuss today and share insight on how we can move things forward, how we can beat plastic pollution, how we can do things better, provide really good strategies. In fact, they'll start from helping us understand what exactly the problem or the challenge is that we have with plastic pollution in Nigeria and in the world at large. And we have Mr. Bodunri Oye on the call. We have Mr. Wole, and we have Israel Olaniyan, who will be discussing and driving the panel session today. So in a short while, we'll start, and we would start having really fast conversation and fast pace. Please keep your notepads and your pen ready for questions. If you have contributions and things you'd like to add or things you need clarity on, this is the session where you can get all of the answers. We're happy to provide all of the responses that you need. Thank you. So I'll go right away to invite someone on the management team from Sidani Group to give us a welcome address. We have Oluwafisai Ayodiji on the call, who would give us a welcome address in the next 2 minutes as we start off with today's webinar. Thank you. Fisayo, please, if you can hear me. Okay, so I'll continue with the conversation. We have invited 3 panelists today to drive the panelist discussion on how we can beat plastic pollution in a way to commemorate the World Environment Day. So I would be speaking to each of their profiles. We have them on the call. We'd like to also hear from them. However, I will just discuss their profile in the next 1 minute. We have Mr. Bodunri Oye, Mr. Wole Adegbule, and Mr. Israel Olaniyan, who will be discussing on the panelists today, who are members of the panelists. So Mr. Bodunri Oye he serves at the head of technology and innovation for climate action at the National Council of Climate Change. In this role, he spearheads the utilization of technology and innovation to address climate change challenges. Shortly, he'll be coming on the call to share his perspective on how we can beat plastic pollution, tell us what exactly the problem or the problems are that we are facing as regards climate change and the health impacts. And lastly, Nigeria. So please, let's, in our rooms or wherever we are joining this webinar, give a round of applause to Mr. Bodunri Oye. Thank you. And our second speaker or member of the panel is Wole Adegbule. Wole Adegbule is an environmental advocate and champion of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. He is a UN 5th Global Entrips Award and British Council Future Leaders Connect certificate recipient who has physically engaged over 10,000 youths across Africa. His profile, as you can see, is really loaded. He is someone who is passionate and has keen interest in driving things and moving things forward, having a lot of conversations on climate change, driving advocacy, developing strategies and policies, and just ensuring that when it comes to climate change and how we can impact health and dealing with its impact on health, the negative impact, things can be made better and things can be pushed forward. So please, if you can hear us wherever you are, just give Mr. Wole a round of applause for to be with us today and to speak on the panel today as well. Thank you. And finally, we have the last member of the panel, Mr. Israel Olaniyan, who is a lawyer. The profile here is saying he wears many hats, and that's something I can allude to, being a member of staff at Sidani. He's highly skilled. He's a highly skilled compliance lawyer management consultant with extensive experience at the intersection of law, public policy, technology, and strategy for international development. And currently, we see Mr. Israel Olaniyan driving the Sudani Ecosystem Research Project and doing a lot of things on doing research on climate change. Where are we at with climate change in Nigeria? What can we do better? What are the policies? What adjustment can we make to these policies? We have Israel Olaniyan driving that heavily and ensuring that there's so much we can do on that. So please, wherever you are, you can give Mr. Israel Olaniyan a warm round of applause as well. Thank you so much. And we have our panelists in the call. I would just like to hear from them and confirm that they are with us. So we'd have Mr. Wole. Hi, Mr. Wole. Good morning. Please, if you can hear us, say something to the wonderful participants you have on the call today. Tell us what the expectations are and some of the things you'd be teaching us or talking to us about, really more like the discussions you'll be having. Tell us some of the things we should expect from this session. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Wole. As Mr. Luke has described, I'm very happy to be here this time around. I love talking about the environment and climate change, and it's another opportunity to discuss about climate change once again on this wonderful platform. I welcome everyone to this meeting, and I'm very, very sure that by the time we finish, we have one or two things to gain as an acquired knowledge. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wole. We are also hopeful that we'll get a lot of nuggets and take home a lot from this meeting. Hello, Israel. Please, if you're in the call, can you tell us one or two things or two objectives or expectations that would take home from this meeting? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming to, have this conversation with us. So basically today we'll just be looking at how we can drive collective action, to ensure that plastic pollution as a global issue, we do our bit to prevent the ongoing impact it's having, and how we can, create awareness basically to ensure that we play our part and we tackle this issue and resolve it. Thank you so much.
Israel. Finally, we have Mr. Bodori on the call. I would also like for Mr. Bodori to tell us something or speak to the wonderful attendees that we have, our expectations, one or two things you hope we would learn or would pick before leaving the call today. Thank you, Mr. Bodori. I'm not sure that Mr. Bodori can hear us.
Hi, good morning. Mr. Bodori is not here at the moment, but will join us shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Fisayo, for letting us know that. So just continue with the conversations, and we'd like to know at all if there is a link. Let's even know why we are here. We just want to know that there is a link between plastic pollution, climate change impacts, and the need for this discussion. So, Mr. Wole, would you please kindly tell us or discuss some of the link between climate change impacts and plastic pollution? How exactly is plastic pollution, highlighting or escalating the issues we have with climate change? What exactly is climate change and what are these issues? How is plastic pollution contributing to the issues we have currently? Thank you, Mr. Wole.
Thank you, Mr. Luke. Okay, before I start, I would like to demystify the concept of this climate change. Of course, you might be well familiar with the word climate and change. Two words joined together, and they call them climate change. It's just, we understand change. That's an alteration. So simply put, climate change is like a long-term shift a long-term shift in temperature and weather pattern. And before I proceed, climate and weather are two different phenomena. Climate takes a while to change. Under normal circumstances, it takes a while for climate to change, a long time. Unlike weather could change at any time. For instance, I was driving this morning. It appeared as if it wanted to rain, but 5 minutes after, everywhere looked so bright. So, unlike climate is a phenomenon that takes a while to change, and that is a major difference between climate and weather. So, when there is a situation whereby climate is now changing, climate is now looking like weather in terms of transition, then we need to be very careful about it and take it on a serious note, because we actually don't know what it might bring. And this issue of climate change has been traced to different kinds of situations. In the past, even Nigeria is built on majorly two Abrahamic religions, the Islam and Christianity. And there's a particular book, individually, there's a particular holy book that they read. And a story occurred to the story of Noah. Noah is known as Nuhu in Islam. What happened? We know the world was ravaged by flooding. Could actually be related to climate change, because they were thinking the rain will stop, but it never stopped. So they ravaged the whole planet Earth and change everybody and destroy lives and properties. But Noah was very wise. In a way, he had provided a mitigation factor for climate change, him and his household. And what he did then led to the protection of some species that we have on Earth till today. I am very sure that he wouldn't have had the opportunity to protect all the species of flora and fauna present in the Earth then. But with the best of his capability, he was able to secure some, and we are still enjoying them today. So that is climate change, and one of the reasons why we need to provide measures for its mitigation. So we know, back 10 to 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the rates at which we were seeing people suffering from cancer or all those terminal diseases was very low. 30 years ago, I think the first time I heard about cancer was age 6 or so, and it was very rare, unlike now. What has happened? Apparently something is happening somewhere that we do not understand. Prior to that time, development, we weren't this developed. But despite the fact that we weren't developed, we have access to better life. We had access to good health, or a better health, so to speak. Now that virtually every household has a car, we groove at all times, we go to work with different cars, and in a household, a wife will have a car, the husband has a car, the kids also, they have their own cars. Unlike them, in my school, there was only one person who had a car. I can remember in my primary school, our own, just the headmaster had a car. But in the same school today, we have so many cars. We call this still development, but we are altering the environment. We are altering the climate. So climate is a long-term shift. According to the UN, that's the simplest definition they could give. Climate change is a long-term shift in temperature and weather patterns. All these things are supposed to be over a long period of time, but we are beginning to see the impacts, like it is appearing virtually every time. I am very sure. I grew up in the southwestern part of Nigeria. It used to be very cold or cool or cooler. Let me put it that way. While I was young, but now everywhere is hot. And when it starts raining, even the flooding has been a long-term challenge, but there are some areas whereby before, irrespective of the torrential rainfall, we never experience flooding. But just a little prolonged rainfall this time around, we know everybody will be running after skater. All these things are results our impact, our effects, they are the testament of climate change. And the fact that we come from African region, we are more susceptible to the impact of climate change. Why? We are still developing. We do not have the measures to combat an hazard, like a spontaneous fight against a particular phenomenon. Africa is still developing, especially in this western part of Africa. We still don't have that. So should climate change just change, just as the way COVID came in 2019 to 2020, that came on, it just came on away, and it forced everybody indoor. Even soccer stadiums, people were playing football while the stadium was empty. It led to lots of lives, lots of livelihood, a lot of people, a lot of businesses crumble. It's just like an example of what climate change could do if we don't start fight against it now. It doesn't seem people poverty is on a very high level. People want to eat, so they don't care about the future. Tell me someone whose livelihood is basically on deforestation, illegal logging. How will I convince that person that what you are doing is not good? So let me provide for you. Let me just tell you what you are doing is not good. Stop it for the protection of the earth. You will definitely look at me and feel I'm not making sense. Why? If I'm to convince him, I should be able to provide an alternative that he will bank on. But for the fact that all those things are still not in place, that is why we need to be more vocal about it, especially in Africa. And there are some areas we need to be. As we speak now, there are some funds we support. The highest rate of emission in the world. They are channeling their waste into Africa, seeing Africa as a dump ground. But the fact that the knowledge of climate change is still very low, it is suppressing the voice of the people. Just a few of us right now is talking about climate change. I don't think on this call we have up to 100 people. So the fact that the knowledge is very low and the voice is very low, we are being shortchanged globally. But thank God we are here. I believe after this meeting, one person will tell another person. One person will tell two people. Those people will be telling, like, just to ensure that all our messages are being transmitted and transferred. So, what are the major drivers of this climate change we're talking about? Deforestation is there, number one. Burning of fossil fuel. Let me talk about that deforestation. In 2005, the FAO, an agency organization under the UN, rated Nigeria as the biggest victim of deforestation in the world. That's the biggest victim of deforestation in the world. And when they made that announcement, Nigerians didn't really bother because we felt trees were created by God or whoever we believe in. Then we shouldn't cry over it, that it will definitely grow back. But eventually, years later, we started having the impact because climate change started coming in, the impact of climate change started coming in, started affecting our produce in the farm. So many areas, especially in the north, are being encroached, and desertification now takes place. People couldn't access potable water anymore. I remember when I was younger, we used to drink from the well. But who would try drinking from the well today? I'm very sure nobody, because we have already lost the faith or the trust we used to have in the well water. But back then, it wasn't so. Along the line, the tussle between the Fulani herdsmen and local farmers in Benue started. Why? Because of climate change. It has been traced to climate change. The past president of Nigeria made mention of that around 2017, that the tussle between the two phenomena, the Fulani herdsmen and the local farmers in Benue axis, have been traced to climate change, even though people didn't really see the president there and as someone that was making sense. But it was very right. The menace carried out in 2005 actually reflected, and is still reflecting in our country today. So apart from that, the fossil fuel, we still live in an era whereby the green economy is still like a mirage. People are already switching from the economy that runs on brown into economy that runs on green. Green economy is simply the economy of sustainability, health, wealth, and well-being. Economy that do not consider like a total dependence on fossil fuel for sustainability. Is an economy that provides an alternative for the use of fossil fuel and other non-environmentally friendly activities in the country or in the community or in the society. But the fact that this part of the world, we still do not have that zeal. And the fact that the bulk of our investment, the bulk of our IGL comes from oil, it's so difficult for us to suddenly shift from brown economy into green. So the fact that fossil fuel is being really explored in this part of the world is one of the reasons why this climate change is really happening and it is affecting us drastically. In Nigeria today, we're talking about subsidy. While in some other countries like Denmark, Sweden, they are shifting. They are really shifting into the economy that runs on green energy. Now, transportation is part of, especially in this part of the world, transportation is one of the major drivers of climate change. Like I explained earlier, every household will have a car. So as they are driving the car, we are emitting different kinds of toxic gases, greenhouse gases. And these things are depleting the ozone layer. Once the ozone layer is depleted, it gives room to climate change impact. And now, what is the nexus between climate change and health? Like I said, I didn't know about cancer. I got to know about cancer around 6 years, and I didn't see it again all through 90s, early 2000s, till mid 2000. Like it started occurring drastically. Why is it so? It's because we don't care about the naturalness. We are really shifted our attention on development. Development acting like a green snake in the green grass, killing us. We are happy though we are making progress, but no, it is killing us earthwise. The greenhouse gases, they are very, very toxic, especially when they are being emitted sporadically on a very high rate. All these things are killing us, giving the people terminal diseases. You know, some of them are even, they develop like different kinds of diseases, memory loss, slow speech. It affects them. It's the rate of asthma has really increased. So it's one of the reasons why climate change is an evil as described by the UN, which we need to fight on. Now, climate change, health, and plastic waste. We used to have Ragolis water in the 90s for people who are millennials. And the Ragolis water is only the elite that could afford them majorly then. But the fact that it is everywhere today. So Ragolis water is plastic. For people who can afford Ragolis water, they go for pure water. Every household, because we've lost the belief, the faith in that well. No possible water anymore. So the increase of plastic waste has been, the rate of plastic waste has been so increased. We go to the market, we buy carbonated drinks packaged with plastics. We go to the market, we buy water. packaged in plastics. People depend on sachet waters. They buy it in box. I can't lie. I still have my sachet water. I still have my plastic water at home presently. So we take these things home. We dispose. Me as an environmentalist, I ensure I dispose my waste properly. But I do not know the end point of the waste I'm disposing. All this cause a menace to the environment, having a linkage with climate change, destroying our health. According to the Federal Ministry of the Environment, I think 2018, they said the 9% of the waste generated in Nigeria are plastics. The one thing about the federal government is they are very, very vast, especially the key principal officers. They are very, very vast on data. But what can be done to mitigate or combat the menace we have in the environment is always a challenge. But we can't wait. Excuse me. We can't wait for the government to take charge of everything. It also starts from our home. We start in our household. We start taking care of our environment. We start by ensuring the waste we generate are being managed properly. We start by letting people know while in the public transport system. Dropping litters on the floor, probably while you were traveling, should be cautioned. So what are the nexus between climate change, plastic waste, and health? Plastic waste, it takes a lot of time for them to decompose. I doubt if they can ever decompose, and we have them all around. So plastic waste have been disposed indiscriminately. Some are disposed in the water. The fishes that we eat, they are eaten from that. By the time the fishermen give us the fish and we cook and we eat, definitely we are injuring ourselves. Unknowingly to people, they are killing themselves. So climate change, plastic waste, and health, they have the nexus. And the nexus is they are actually killing our people. Why? Why? It's a question we need to ask ourselves. I believe I'm going to stop here. And later we can talk about ways to mitigate or ways we can use, strategies we can actually make use of to combat all these menaces I've mentioned. Thank you for now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wole, for the overview. Thank you. You started by even telling us what climate change is, and you gave us a distinction between the weather and climate change. So weather is just the changes we see with the atmosphere, the temperature, and things like that at every point in time. However, when the climate that's supposed to be the longer version is beginning to look like the weather, then we are in trouble. So thank you for that overview. Thank you for taking us back memory lane, how someone was able to use an intervention to stop climate change action. And thank you for also letting us know that Nigeria and Africa are not the ones producing the most waste in the world. However, a lot of them are being channeled to us. Thank you for also letting us know what some sources of plastic waste are and what they are, and how improper disposal have been a problem. Right now, we'd want to hear from Israel how plastic pollution and the disposal of plastic waste are sort of exacerbated climate change actions in Nigeria. So hello, Israel. Do you maybe want to shed more light into that?
Thank you so much, Luke. Thanks to Mr. Wole for that very exhaustive overview. So I'd like to start by saying that plastic pollution and climate change, they are very intimately connected. If you, do like a quick study of the life cycle of plastic production and use and disposal, you find that there's a lot of touching points. For example, the production of plastic heavily relies on fossil fuels. Many industries, I mean, around the world that are leading plastic industries, they rely heavily on fossil fuels, to produce plastic. And this process contributes heavily to climate change because, in producing plastics, GHGs, that's the greenhouse gases, actually emitted, and then they, lead to global warming that leads to climate change. Secondly, you find that plastic use and disposal, mostly in developing countries, is very, very, very unregulated, and that alone, like Mr. Wole said, affects not just the environment but those who live in it. So basically, that connection is something that we need to explore and then look at possible solutions that can help mitigate the impact. Because for Nigeria, our response to climate change majorly should be around adaptation strategies, in the sense that we don't exactly contribute as much to climate change, as the very big countries, the top countries in the world do. But in terms of the impact on us, it's a lot, because we already have very weak systems, infrastructure, and all of those. And so ultimately we are affected more, and then we are less able to respond, adequately to climate change and its impact. So I'll say that plastic pollution actually exacerbates, climate risks in many crucial ways. First thing is that when plastic waste accumulates in environments, for example, maybe it gets stored, in landfills, or it's incinerated, or it even gets into the marine bodies. You find that first of all, the air is polluted. Secondly, the coastal areas, those whose livelihood actually depends heavily on these marine bodies, are affected. The biodiversity in the rivers, in the oceans, they are being, injured or even killed. So this disrupts the ecosystem. It affects food security, food safety, and even food quality. Some places in Nigeria today have less access to good drinking water, quality drinking water, because of plastic pollution. So that link cannot be denied. It's a lot, and there are many direct and even indirect impacts on communities that are currently vulnerable. So what I would say is this: by addressing plastic pollution, we actually, in the sense of it, actually address climate change, because the impact of plastic pollution on climate change is beyond the normal scope. And looking at Nigeria, for example, our response capacity, our resilience, to climate risk is very, very low. And so, if Mr. Wole said something about knowledge and awareness of climate change and how it affects the behavior of the populace towards even taking up sustainability action and stuff. And currently, at Sudani, we are doing a study that's trying to explore how public awareness of climate change actually impacts on the citizens' capacity to respond, or to even take up personal action against climate change. So I would propose that there is we need to actually create more awareness about the damage that plastics cause to the environment. Most people don't know. They are actually ignorant. So it's an ongoing cycle. It goes on. They don't know that it's wrong, so they keep using it, and they keep disposing waste improperly, and that leads to air pollution, land pollution, water pollution, and it affects our health. It affects the environment. It affects the planet, and ultimately we are affected, and the impact is seen in many ways. So if we address this issue of plastic pollution, we'll also be addressing climate change, and we'll be ensure that the environment is better conducive for human living, and then that the ecosystem is more favorable, or is more positioned to actually support life and not lead to death and all of those. So I'll just stop there to allow for more listening on topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Israel. Thank you for your insight and perspective. And I've heard a couple of things you said. First, in talking about how plastic pollution is exacerbating the effects of climate change, you have sort of tried to explain to us that it is not a one-way traffic. You've tried to say that it has impacts on humans, it has impacts on marine life, and mostly people living in communities where they have to depend largely on the either to drink water from the streams or sell things from marine to make money. So you've sort of talked about the chemicals that are emitted when we burn plastic and how it just largely causes a lot of problems. And you've also talked about how you also alluded to what Mr. Wole said, that by taking a bottom to top approach where if we can address the problem with plastic pollution, we'll be able to address the problem with climate change. So thank you for your insights and thank you for your perspective. Right now, we'll just run quickly into something Wole had mentioned, which is climate change is still sometimes a little abstract to us, seeing that we are not Nigeria and Africa are not the ones, contributing to the bulk of climate change problems. However, we need to start taking small steps. So I'd like to ask in really clear terms and in 2 or 3 minutes, both to Mr. Wole and to you, Israel, what are strategies at government level? What are things you can tell individuals on the call today to say, if you do this, we can beat plastic pollution in Nigeria and largely contribute to beating plastic pollution in Africa? So please, do you mind proposing strategies or methods and things we can do at the government level, at household level, at individual level? Just propose things, that we can do. And when we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, by 2030, would have contributed to the SDGs goals, or to the SDGs rather, by beating plastic pollution. Thank you. So I'll start with you, Mr. Wole. Okay, I'd like to confirm that Mr. Wole can hear me. Else, I would be asking that question to you, Israel, first. Okay, Israel, do you mind telling us, strategies at different levels that we can? Oh, sure, it's better now, Mr. Wole. We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, I was trying to say that first of, we need to spread the level of awareness, and the fact that the level or the knowledge of climate change is still very low in this part of the world. It starts with you and I. A day like this, anything we discuss or any knowledge we acquire shouldn't be concealed. We should try as much as possible to tell our people when we get back home. We start spreading it. It might not appear so appealing to people, but just let them know. And we shouldn't be too coward or afraid to caution people. When waste, especially plastics, are being disposed indiscriminately, we should call the attention of them and ensure they do the correct, even if they don't want to comply at that moment. I am very sure leaving that place, the message will stick. And if they want to try it again, the conscience will not allow them to rest. So that is on our own part as good citizens of the world. But if I am to make a strategy that could work better for the government, like a recommendation, I would rather ask the government to focus more on reinforcement in place of enforcement. Enforcement is when you do this, you'll be paid, you pay some fines. When you do this, we might arrest you. That might not really work. Why? Because people really want to eat. The level of poverty is still very high. Why not tell them that if you manage your waste properly, this is the amount of money I'm going to give you. This is the amount of gifts you are going to be collecting. This is like we are placing premium on the waste generated. That will work better. We have a lot of young people who are focused, who now major on the use of plastic waste. In terms of recycling, reusing, they are making it to fend themselves like a source of livelihood. Invest in that sector. Tell them this and this could be done. Why you are protecting the environment by ensuring you are disposing your plastic waste in a way that befits the planet Earth. This will definitely work better. And that will be my greatest or a top priority in terms of recommendations that I will suggest the government imbibe. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wole. So I hear you, and the first thing you started from saying that if we do proper sensitization or if we create awareness, then we'll let people know what is at stake. And we tell them what is at stake and what can be done better. However, you also propose another option to say we should maybe liaise with the government, or the government should have some kind of deterrent for people who do not dispose of plastic waste properly. But then you also created an alternative to say that what if we reward them as opposed to punish them? And you gave us pros and cons for both of them, which typically is our method or the way we do things in Sudan, driving things using evidence and just trying to see what outweighs the other. So thank you for that insight. So would push for more awareness and would see how, people at strategy and policy level, we want to liaise with the government to see how people can be rewarded on, whilst dealing with plastic waste. So thank you, Israel. If you can hear me, would you like to reinforce or add one or two other strategies on how we can beat plastic pollution in Nigeria and in Africa? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Luke, and thank you, Mr. Wole, for that. So I just like to add to what you have said. So first thing is to look at the aspect of the cause of plastic pollution. So majorly, the use of single-use plastics, like all these clothes, bags, nylons, should be reduced. I should look for ways to advocate for better or more sustainable alternatives to these single-use plastic. Because once you use for example, now a bottle of water, once you're done with it, most times it becomes waste. And then secondly, we need to develop proper waste management practices, at the top level, and then allow it filter down to every other level. And because plastic waste actually is one of the key or the major cause of plastic pollution. So proper practices around waste disposal. Burning plastic is not going to solve the problem. Keeping it in refuse dumps won't solve the problem, because it will contribute more to GHG emissions. What we can do is to develop recycling mechanisms, to ensure that plastic is recycled and not just because, as Mr. Wole said earlier, plastic is it has a very long lifespan and it's hardly ever decomposes. So the best thing is to recycle it. Third, I would like to say, so apart from the aspect of the end users and then government, let's look at businesses, industries that produce plastics. There's something called APR policies, extended producer responsibility. When the government begins to hold these producers more accountable for plastic that they produce, and then also ensure that they manage not just the production but even the disposal of plastic waste, then that would be like a way to incentivize sustainable practices, and then even help to reduce single-use plastic use and everything. And then lastly, I'd like to say that beyond addressing the issue of plastic pollution, let's also look at how we can prioritize the needs of communities that are actually vulnerable, because whether I would like it or not, this issue is pervasive, and some communities are actually more affected than others. So beyond addressing the core issues or the root causes, let's look at how we can solve the problem of those who are currently even have been affected by this issue. By helping to ensure that, okay, where there's no quality water, there's access to good drinking water, access to adequate drainage, sanitation facilities, and even healthcare. And then lastly, like Mr. Wole said, there should be sensitization, education campaigns, awareness campaigns to help, teach the public or help to sensitize them to know that plastic pollution or plastic waste, is not, supposed to be normal. Like, it's not what we should use normally and dispose carelessly. That behavioral change, like it needs to happen. People should start thinking about more sustainable ways. How can I adopt, a culture of sustainability as a person? How can I use plastic more responsibly? How can I even sensitize my colleague, my friend, my family about the damage or the danger of plastic pollution? And if we do all of this, then I see that we'll drive meaningful action and would actually even create solutions to solve this problem. Thank you very much. I think I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Israel. Thank you, Wole. These are really good strategies, and they are insights that we need here today. As we are beginning to round up, I'd like to appeal to the attendees. If you have questions, if there are things you need more clarity on, if there are things you would like us to touch on before we wrap up in the next 10 minutes, please put them in the chat box. Thank you. Please put them in the chat box, and we have some members of our management team and experts as well. Mr. Abayomi Adeosun, who would like to speak. Someone would give you the access to do that. However, I hear you, Israel. I hear you talk about why produce so much plastics in the first place, which is the cost of production. And I also hear you say we should actually develop proper waste management practices, from not burning them to not leaving them in dumping sites because they would never decompose. They are not biodegradable. To even after doing proper advocacy and doing proper sensitization, we should also prioritize people living in vulnerable communities and see what we can do for them to ensure that they have access to safe drinking water, and that we can just help them drive things at the community level and people that are mostly affected. Thank you for that insight. Thank you for teaching us or telling us today how we can best beat plastic pollution in Nigeria. Please, if you have questions, I'll be taking some of your questions. We have Mr. Abayomi Adeosun, who is also an expert. I would like to say one or two things on the call. Please, Abayomi, if you can hear us, we're happy to hear your suggestion. I have a question in the chat box. I'll read that after hearing from Abayomi. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and special thanks to the panelists for doing justice to the topic already. I just want to pose a question, which is, I wouldn't call it a rhetoric question, but something that can help us to begin to think of what we can do as individuals and as professionals in this field. Israel mentioned that we should, that people should begin to think of how to responsibly take care of their waste, especially plastic waste that is very hard to decompose. But I want us to look at it from this perspective. That advice goes to, of course, the people at the individual level, but on the other hand, at the societal level, even if individuals begin to think responsibly about plastic waste, there will still be need to, at the societal level, tackle how the waste will manage. So I don't irresponsibly dump my plastics on the streets, I put them in the bin. But what happens from there? Who takes it from the bin and where do they dump it? It's no longer in my own care. Where does it go from there? So at that society level, which is pretty much missing in a lot of societies we have in the country, in a lot of communities in Nigeria. So my point is, we should also begin to think of what we can do from the private sector, from businesses, what we can do to maybe take a community at a time and help to set up systems to recycle their own products for their own use within the community. That way, I will be able to manage and convince people to responsibly use their waste if they see the actual product of the recycled product of their waste. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Abayomi. Thank you for also helping us to, just highlight that whatever solution we are recommending is not just at individual or at the lowest level, neither is it only at the governmental level, but even at community level. What are things that would work at the community level? So as we go back, we really should think back on these things. What are solutions that we can propose at community level? Taking them community by community, society by society, what are things you can do that would serve as, just a good role modeling activity to help individuals understand that, by putting together our plastic waste, these are the things we've been able to come up with. So thank you, Abayomi. We would reflect and think on these things, and we might have one of the speakers also respond to that. We'll take more questions. I have some questions in the chat box, and I'll just read them out and would ask our speakers as we begin to round up as well. So Kelechi Energy is on the call, and he's asking, he would like to know in 1 minute how plastic waste play a role in global warming. Mr. Wole, was you who spoke to that? Do you want to, in 30 seconds, because we are rounding up, how, plastic waste, how do they play a role in global warming? Do you want to speak to that quickly, Mr. Wole? Thank you. Okay, Israel, please, do you want to help us respond to that question? I'm not sure that's Mr.
I think I'm back. I'm always finding it difficult to unmute myself, so I just did. Sorry. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can confirm that we can hear you. Sure, we can.
Okay. Yeah, this major significant, like the major nexus between plastic waste and climate change, the fact that plastic waste emits greenhouse gases. Like I said, like 3.4% of the entire greenhouse gases. And these things are depleting the ozone layer, which is increasing the temperature of the earth. Then when the temperature of the earth is drastically increased, we're inviting climate change. So that's just the nexus. Plastic waste are emitting the GHG, known as the greenhouse gases, which is a proponent, like a driver to climate change.
Thank you, Mr. Wole. For the person that asked the question, I hope there's a lot of clarity now to say that plastic waste emits greenhouse gases that in turn depletes the ozone layer and is causing global warming. So Joy is saying special thanks to everyone who hosted and spoke to us on this topic. However, our question is about how different sectors collaborating with nutritional organization on this climate change in order for the society to gain nutrition education and the hazards of using plastics, thereby limiting them. So she's putting another layer to our conversation to say that, do we want to speak to how even plastics can affect nutrition? Israel, any nuggets you'd like to share on that? Anything you'd like to say about how plastics can even be affecting nutrition as well?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it even links down to the third question that I can see here by Grace Luca. So speaking to the direct impact of plastics on health. So first of all, plastic, the materials for producing plastic is not is not supposed to be for human consumption, first of all. So when we ingest any of these, particles into our bodies, it's toxic and it has the consequences on human health. It also, links back to nutrition in the sense that what we eat, most times is packaged in plastic. So, and then there's no guarantee that the plastic we use, to package food is actually completely, sealed up, or it does not in any way pollute the food that, you put into it. So all of this, is how it affects both nutrition and health. And, consequently, it can lead to all manner of diseases. I think there are a few studies that have shown that certain cancers, even endocrine issues in the body, is a result of plastic pollution. So I think that speaks to the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Israel. Maybe in the same breath, you should just propose better alternatives for plastic. You can just do that in the same breath. So what are better substitutes or alternatives? Grace Luca is asking, what can we use? When we buy things at restaurants, supermarkets, we have them put in plastic. So what are other things we can use? I'm aware that some countries have started. However, do you want to speak to us on better alternatives? Thank you. For different products anyway.
Okay, so speaking to better, alternatives to plastic, first of all, it should be around, first of all, stopping the use of single-use plastic. There are certain kind of plastic that we use, once, and then we dispose of. Those plastics should be, we should limit the use of those kind of plastic, and then we should reuse plastics, more. Secondly, there are certain companies today or industries who encourage eco-friendly, alternatives. And then there's no one size fits all, for this, because different industries are different contexts would is it demand for different response. So they actually alternatives. So I'm not able to speak, to say so this should apply for this or for this. But as far as the core material of that eco-friendly, alternative is able to solve this problem, then it's something that we should look into. So eco-friendly materials are better alternatives to plastic. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Israel. So we are wrapping up now, or we are going to call Oluwafisai Ayodele to please help us close the session. And as we all have said, we can use eco-friendly alternatives, the use of paper bags, majorly, paper cups. A lot of restaurants are going to make very durable paper bags and cups that we can use in place of, plastics. So thank you, and thank you all for your time, and thank you for the insights as well. Would like call on Oluwafisai now to please wrap up this session. Thank you. Hello, Oluwafisai, if you can hear us, please help us close the session.
I can hear you, Luke, and good afternoon, everyone. It's been an enlightening session as we conclude on this impactful webinar on plastic pollution, climate change, as well as health. I want to say on behalf of Sidani Group, express our heartfelt gratitude for your active participation and valuable contributions. Of course, this session has been enlightening as we have explored the intricate relationships between plastic pollution, climate change, and human health. We have also seen the devastating consequences of plastic pollution on our ecosystem and as well as on our health. So the knowledge shared by our esteemed panelists has truly been eye-opening. Of course, at Sidani Group, we're a management consulting firm and we're dedicated to health system strengthening and strategic consulting across sectors. We recognize the urgent need for action to address plastic pollution crisis in Nigeria and of course globally. Our collaboration among stakeholders, including national bodies, public and private institutions, development partners, and donors is essential, especially in even addressing plastic pollution. This webinar, of course, has provided us with a platform to share insights, ideas, and innovative solutions. And of course, you can see that by working together, we can drive meaningful change and shape a sustainable future. Thus, I encourage each and every one of us to reflect on the knowledge gained and take actionable steps within our respective domain. I appreciate all our panelists, our participants, our attendees, as well as the organizing team for making this webinar a resounding success. And I want to implore us to carry forward the knowledge and passion ignited today so that we can translate them into tangible actions that safeguard our planet and as well as enhance the well-being of current and future generation. So on behalf of the managing partner, on behalf of the management of Sidani Group, thank you once again for your active engagement pending this session. And I wish that we also forge a path towards a plastic-free and sustainable future. To Mr. Wole and to Mr. Israel, I say thank you very much. And to all our attendees, thank you and God bless you.
Thanks so much for
Sure, thank you, Mr. Wole. Thank you, Israel. We can see some more comments. Please, if you have more comments and more suggestions on how we can beat plastic pollution, we're happy to get that in our emails. The slide is going to be displayed that has Sidani's email address. You can send them to us and we're happy to collect these responses and push them out. So someone has said better substitutes can be introduced and the use of glass jars and stainless steel. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining the call.